Hey guys, I'm back. I've been out of YouTube for quite a while because it's another round of lockdown for us and things are pretty hard for me, and I couldn't get any newly launched equipment for review, but thankfully Canon is kind enough to loan me an R5 for review. So I'm not going to talk so much about the specification and all the things that you've probably known by now from all the other available R5 reviews, but I'm going to share my personal opinion, and here are the topics that I'm going to talk about. So I've been using the C200 since the late 2017, and it's a really good camera that can produce really good image quality. And the 8-bit quality itself is really good enough. If you've used the C200, you would know it for yourself. The 12-bit RAW is even better, but the file size is really very big. So my biggest dislike about the camera is the size of it. Back in the days, this big camera, you know, when you bring it into the set, it looks good. And you know, everyone will like it. The clients feel like they're getting their worth when they see, you know, this whole big thing coming in. But don't get me wrong, I didn't buy the C200 because it's big. I bought it because I've done my research. I've tested the camera, I loaned it from Canon, and I recorded some footage and tested and color graded it. Canon has always one of the best image quality, and the color rendition is something that I've always liked. Even though the specs are not always there, it's always below other brands, but if you have played with the C200, it's really one of the best image. It doesn't have 10-bit, it has 8-bit, but I've done plenty of VFX videos with it. And the thing about cameras this size is that everything else has to be bigger. The rigs, the gimbals, the sliders, the tripods, the monopods. Actually, monopods are pretty okay, but every gear that you get has to be able to carry the payload of the entire camera. And normally cameras this big, it has a lot of add-ons on top. Not just the camera body itself, sometimes the cage, sometimes the map consideration to be made during the setups, or limitations that we need to consider when we want to plan for a shoot. And so at some point during my filmmaking journey, I just decided, you know, why not just handheld all the way? Even though the C200 doesn't have a image stabilizer kind of thing, it still works well for me. Now, in my opinion, the R5 produces a great image. It's like EOS R and Atomos Ninja V or 5 combined together in one body, and R5 came out. The visuals are amazing, the autofocus is really very powerful, the facial recognition. I love the shape and the size of the R5, which makes it very similar to my 5D Mark III. The 4K is really very nice, probably a little bit too sharp for me, even though I've brought down the sharpness in the picture profile. But I think the explanation for that is the 4K footage is actually a downsample from the 8K resolution into the 4K. So basically R5 is utilizing the entire full frame sensor for its 4K, which explains its overheating. And yes, the overheating problem is very real. It is better now at the latest firmware of 1.2.0 compared to other review videos. As of this video's release, there is an option for you to turn the overheating control off, but I doubt you can actually record 4K 50 or 60 frames throughout an 6-hour event or a full day wedding event, or even through a commercial shoot. I do think the overheating problem is very much improved compared to the time when it's just launched. But during commercial shoots, which I think is pretty similar throughout the entire world, there's a lot of waiting time for setups and rehearsals and testings and framings, and even getting client approval, and when they don't approve, the whole thing restarts again. So if the overheating timer starts counting down before we even roll, I think it's going to really look bad for all of us, the production team, the agency, and probably make the client really upset. unless you're really diligent enough to keep changing the settings to avoid it from overheating, like, you know, maybe changing it to 1080 for a live view to test and frame and so on, and then switching it back to 4K. But you know, sometimes you miss it and you actually shoot it in 1080 instead. Yes, there is a solution to extend the overheating problem or even stop it completely, but in my opinion, Canon did this to protect the sensor and possibly give it a longer lifespan, giving the sensor a longer lifespan. And if you're going to stress the sensor just for the sake of shooting 8K without limit, I think there's definitely some sort of damage that could possibly be visible in the image throughout the usage. Imagine if you suddenly see an unwanted vignette or a burnt edge around the sensor. That would be a nightmare. And I can't test this because this unit is a loan unit from Canon. Or even if I'm gonna buy one for myself, I'm not gonna do this hack. Okay, enough about overheating, because I'm pretty sure you have seen and heard all about it. I think there's enough video out there to talk about its overheating, and if you want to follow the hacks, it's totally up to you. The R5 and the C200 is a good match, but I would still prefer the C200 over the R5 in terms of cinematic shots, because I personally prefer the Super 35 over a full frame for video shoots, but I would wish I can get full frame for photography. So there's a little bit of dilemma there. There's no perfect camera, you know, one for all kind of thing. In my nature of work and what I will be hoping to do in the future, these two together will be one of the best combo. I will be able to get the best 4K image out of both camera, and the R5 takes amazing photo with its 45 megapixels. The EOS R is missing out a little bit because of the 4K cropping. The photos are great, but it's not the best photo camera coming from a 5D Mark III user. And the thing that's really missing out is the little mini controller, as they call it, but I'll call it the mini joystick. And they put a touch bar on the EOS R and it's hated by every EOS R user. I'm quite okay with it, but Canon has learned their lesson, and I guess probably is one of the things they try to innovate, but they brought back that mini joystick into the R5. So the mini joystick is mainly to move the focus point around, and in one of my previous shoots we were shooting a diamond on model, and we needed the focus to be just on one spot, and the EOS R we had to keep tapping the screen just like that to move the focus, and then we have to hold both the lens and the body and have to keep our hands still, which means, you know, that the whole idea of letting this go is pretty shit. And if I got this wrong, please correct me in the comments. I'm not a pro photographer, I don't take photos all the time, but I haven't found the best way around this for my EOS R. And with that mini controller, it solves the entire problem I had with moving the focus, which makes R5 the perfect camera with high-end versatility. If I'm shooting a documentary video with the C200 and the R5, it would have been a great combo to cover both video and photo professionally. If the overheating problem is solved, then it would have been a perfect combo. So having said about all of that, my last point, do I need the 8K capability? Before I answer that, I have a little confession to make. I've had the C200, the camera that I'm shooting now, since 2017. But I've probably used the RAW capability like 20% of the time. I hardly use it to the point that I felt like I've wasted my money on it. But the reason for this is because the XF AVC and the MP4 is really very good. And the RAW file size is too big and my CFast card is too small, it's only 128. One of the reasons I bought the C200 is because of the RAW, thinking like I'm getting a red RAW, you know, at this price kind of thing. I did buy a solid port, but my camera had a little bit problem and I can't solve it. So I'm keeping myself away from being sold to the idea of 8K capability or any other bigger resolution like the 5.5K, 6K, 8K, or even 12K. And I definitely wouldn't even use this for this bigger resolutions for interview like many people suggested, because I will end up with a humongous British file and the editor will probably only take a few minutes out of it. I don't think getting higher resolution like the 8K would be a good option for future-proof from now until when the time really comes, for now. Because in my opinion, by the time when 8K is so saturated in the industry, in home theaters, in computer screens, or in gaming industries, by then there will be definitely a better camera which is more stable, which probably won't overheat, which probably has higher frame rates and stuff, and then this camera will be obsolete. If this 8K is your top priority now, or if you think it is your top priority now, then I can't say anything. If you're looking for someone to support your idea of getting 8K as your top priority, this is not the video. And if you think going around YouTube looking for that, I think that is a very bad idea. So let me just say this first as a disclaimer. As of year 2020 and 2021, I don't think that I would need the 8K, and I doubt I will utilize it to the point where I think it's worth the money spent. My advice would be you should evaluate yourself and your production needs. If you're buying the spec because it has great 8K, but in reality you're probably going to only use it like 20% of the time like I did with the C200, then maybe renting would be a better option. But if you know for sure you're going to use it 70% to 100% of the time, then by all means invest in one of these, and please use one of my Amazon affiliate links because it will help me feed my family. So in conclusion, who is this R5 best for? This is my opinion. I do think this camera is one of the best hybrid cameras so far. It would have been a perfect hybrid camera if it's not for the overheating problem. But I think it's currently for the photographers because I personally use it and it's amazing. So the R5 without the XLR, without the audio interface and the controls, the SDI or a full HDMI, or especially the built-in ND, this would not be my main camera. Mainly because I try to shoot in a small crew team, so I don't really have an audio guy to take care of audio specifically, and what I'll normally do is have the boom mic and plug it straight into my C200. If the R5 is my main camera, then I would need a separate guy to take care of the audio, and that will probably cost me more, and the team will be bigger, and it's hard to manage when we're shooting small projects. Other things that I want to talk about are namely the CFast Express card. I wouldn't want to invest onto another new type of card because like the previous CFast card that I got for my C200 is totally underutilized, and I didn't expect this card to be obsolete so fast. The CFast card, not the CFast Express. In like 3 years since 2017, people are starting to transition into CFast Express, and that's quite disappointing for me. I would prefer if they just keep updating the SD cards and make it better, and you know how C70 is going to utilize dual SD cards. I would prefer that. The LPE6 battery has been great for a very long time, and I have tons of this. And one of this lasts 5 to 6 hours on an 8K time lapse on the R5. And during my tests shooting this around my house, it didn't consume one battery completely, and that's about 3 to 4 hours. I was shooting 8K and 4K 100 FPS. So if I do get the R5, I wouldn't have to buy new batteries, and I'm pretty sure the newer LPE6H it's much better. I can understand why they are not using a full HDMI or mini HDMI and they're using a micro HDMI because there's so many things packed into this little body. And if you use a large HDMI, the heat input is going to be much bigger. So that's all I have to say about this camera. I'll be posting another video soon, which is an 8K video that I shot with the R5. So do subscribe and stay tuned if you want to see that. Give me a like and do support me by using one of my affiliate links down below. Or if you would like to be part of my Patreon, I don't have anyone yet. It would be great if there's one there, because I'm not getting paid by YouTube yet, and or even the brand. So any support from you guys would really mean a lot during this pandemic. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.